they don't get into the actual content. They see the tags and accordingly they spell out those things for the blind people to browse through the site. There are many broken links also found on the sites, and consistent web page layouts were missing. And metadata for page, title, keyword, these are also missing. These are the common issues that normally we found while assessing these sites. And what are the challenges? Repetitive issues and voluminous report, that those needs a lot of time to fix those things. Most of the non-compliant issues are due to a following. They don't follow the best practice of design and coding. That is the issue, and developers need sensitization, more and more sensitization required. Shortage of skilled manpower to take up this kind of meticulous activities. And website doesn't prepare web quality manuals. Who are the responsible person and how this needs to be maintained? All these things are not maintained properly. So another thing is they don't go for GIGW compliance certification process because this is a paid service. Evaluation and compliance of 115 checkpoints along with the different teams coordinating and getting those fixed and making those things live is another challenge that we found. And people don't maintain logs also, many of these websites. So what is the website quality manual? What are the components those are required for the website quality manual? Yeah. So due to paucity of time, I am just skipping. You can see this website quality manual. And there is the certificate, quality certificate the STQC provide, which is valid for 3 years. And way forward, because these are the issues, so NIC has launched a project called Content Management Framework, through which these websites generated out of those are automatically compliant to the guidelines. And government is setting a target to make it a mass movement. Thank you.
Thank you for presentation. So we are ready for questions from the floor. Yes, one question please here.
Thank you for the presentation. A question, you talked about the certificate for standardization, testing and so on. Which authority or organization is issuing that certificate?
Standards quality, STQC is the organization under Ministry of Electronics and IT.
Another question? Okay.
Hello, sir. Good presentation. One question that I want to ask is that Government of India has various and numerous websites. I want to know what was the rationale behind selecting these 4 particular websites, all out of the various websites which are available.
Good question. See, under Government of India, there is a ministry. That is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. We are one of the organizations under Ministry of Electronics and Information. So NIC is the organization. We have maybe around 70 odd divisions which cater to different ministries and different projects. So as particular our division, which is a web services division, so we cater to few projects. So these are one of those few, 4 of those few projects. We put these 4 projects as case studies. So STQC is evaluating the sites for all Government of India things. We are not the STQC organization, we are NIC who caters to these projects. So we cleared those projects and we got the guidelines, web quality certification. So we made a case study, what are the challenges and how these to be expedited.
Thank you. Final question.
So, my question is that you had a list of checkpoints of problems, potential problems with websites. is that checked manually? Do you also have an automated software for checking, for instance, broken links and incorrect labels and CSS problems?
Can you please come again? I'm not able to
Do
hear
you have an automated software for doing the checklist, or
Yes,
do
yes.
you do have that?
No, checklists are not automated.
Okay.
Checklists are as a part of guidelines. These 115 checkpoints are mandatory checkpoints.
Uh-huh.
So these checkpoints can be checked through automated tools as well, provided by W3C, or many tools are available, using which we can get to know these.
Right, I just wanted to know if the analysis that you did you use any software, or was it all manual checking?
No, there are software. Automated tools are also available, and a few of these hosting and all those things which cannot be a part of automated setting, those are all anyway manual.
Thank you.
So,
Sir, IBM is making the mining tournament systems, and I wanted to know that is the are you putting this presentation on your website with the contact address, so that in future, if I require, I will contact you and I will see the presentation also.
This, if you see the guidelines.gov.in is a website where these guidelines are available, and the process of making those certification, everything is available as part of guidelines is available on guidelines.gov.in. As far as putting up this presentation is concerned, I think ICEGOV organizers, they must be thinking of doing so.
so thank you for the questions. If we have more questions, I invite you after the track to
Thank you.
discuss with our
Thank you.
author. Thank you. And now I would like to give the chair of the session to Carlos. Thank you.
Yes, for the last paper of the session is an ACT-based border security framework, a case study in Indian perspective.
A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries present on the dais and all the intellectuals present in the hall. The topic, this is Avinash Pokhriyal, and along with Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Katara, presenting an ICT-based border security framework, a case study in Indian perspective. Actually, the effective border management in India is a big problem, because there are 6, basically 7 countries that are the neighbors, where India shares borders with. 7th is Afghanistan, though it is in POK now. So India has increasingly globalized and service-oriented economy. That means that it relies heavily on the movements of goods and people. Now the movements, if get uncontrolled or less regulated, it means that it will increase the illegal immigration and illegal practices. Also, the lack of visibility at the ground level means long delays at checkpoints, and that will encourage the corrupt practices. Along with that, different terrains, climatic conditions, and the relationship with the neighbors, that increases complexity and criticality. So the border management in India is really a critical problem. Now, the various security agencies that are involved in the border managements are Customs, Immigration, Armed Forces, Border Security, and Intelligence. They need to cooperate for the regulation of legal and illegal immigration, ensuring safe and secure movement of authorized people and goods, enabling effective communication and coordination among all the security agencies to share a common platform, neutralizing the threats like terrorism and organized crime, and checking the illegal immigration. They can cooperate with an expanding range of the external information sources, which are technology-driven and intelligence-based, in order to develop a common operating platform for the movements of goods and people across the borders. Now, what is the solution for that? The solution is to identify and implement control points to improve the border security, and for that, a smart border management system is the need of the hour. The smart border management, what it does, it's smart coupling of technology and infrastructure. It is capable of handling the geopolitical, social, and economical challenges faced by India due to its vast border fronts, and security tool for the coordination and concerted actions by various government agencies within the country. So our aim is to secure our frontiers and safeguard our nation from the risk involved in the movement of goods or people between India and other countries. Now, how to develop a smart border security management system is It will incorporate the integration of real-time technologies like RFID and GPS, along with GIS and all other sensor-based technologies. It will bridge the gap between the different agencies by exchanging the information between different agencies and makes cross-border movements faster. It will increase the accuracy in detecting non-compliant shipments. It will reduce the fraudulent practices, and it will ensure that the object's integrity is not compromised when the object is in transition. Advantages I will tell later on. It will improve the visibility, as well as it will increase the security checks. Now, what is RFID? I will go directly to this. This is RFID. There are tagged objects, means RFID technology is applied to each of the object. Then, what reader does? RFID reader sends a signal to the tag and interrogates what is it. The tag, along with its identification, it sends other information that is specific to the object to the reader. Now there is a gateway in between the database and applications and the RFID reader, which acts as an interface in between. It is how RFID works. Tags can be attached to anything that I have shown here. There is an antenna which is sending the signal to the tagged object, which is a car over here. Then the signals in radio frequency waves, they are just stored into the reader system, and from the reader system it is saved to the database in a computer. Now, what are e-seals? E-seals are basically equivalent to mechanical seals, but they are provided with RFID tags. So they are much more safer. As soon as an e-seal is detached from an object, the message is sent to the main database that object has been stolen or some problem is there. So the main database knows it. Now, now this is how our system will work. GPS technology is watching all the object's transition, where the object is starting from, where the object is going, and since each object is tagged, so we are knowing the position as well as the identity of the object. Here, what is done? All the tagged items from T1 to T9, they are in pallets. Pallets are also RFID tagged, so each pallet is known. Now, all the pallets are just stored in the truck. Now, the position of the truck is known through GPS technology, along with all the checkpoints. So wherever the truck goes, truck is also having e-seal. So wherever the truck goes, it is known, as well as the truck's identity is also known. So there is a close connection between the object and the tag. What our ICT-based border security system does is it allows the tracking of objects from the source to the destination, and it goes through various checkpoints and various security agencies, utilizes RFID and GPS technologies to identify and track the objects. All the objects are initially sealed with object-specific RFID tag. Now, what object-specific RFID tag does, it makes a very tight bonding between the object and the tag, so that when the tag is detached from the object, the main database is informed that the tag has been detached from the object. So it is a very good security from the security point of view. Now this is how object validation data is stored in the tag. This object validation data stores unique tag ID, which is manufacturer based, unique object ID, which is also manufacturer based. Now the object specific data is specific to different objects. In case of some objects, it may be length, breadth, or the weight, or in case of human beings, it may be fingerprints, it may be face, it may be iris, or anything. Now this data will be typically written to the e-seal before it is attached to the object. These are the, now this is the whole diagram of the object specific e-seal. There is a main database, there is an object identifier, and there is a tag or e-seal. Now what we are doing, the tagging tool places the information, object-specific information, to that ECL as well as to the main database, so that the information is going two ways. It is going to the ECL, at the same time that information about the object is sent to the main database. So main database having is information about that object. The tagging tool measures the set of object-specific characteristics. It computes the hash value and writes the object validation data to the tag and to the main database. What object verifier does? It determines if the object validation data delivered by the tag is authentic or not. It has three modules. One is RFID reader, second is crypto engine, and third is communication interface, which communicates with the main database to check whether that object is really that object or not. RFID reader, it requests the RFID tag for the object validation data stored on the tag. Then the crypto engine checks the authenticity of the object validation data, which is read by the RFID reader, and it determines if the object validation data has been altered by the imposter, which would be an indicator that this object is a fake object or this is not the object which was sent. Then the communication interface. It is used to determine the authentic cryptographic keys from the main database. So it verifies it, whether the object is, it checks the hash value of the object. If the both hash values are the same, then the object is verified as authentic objects. Main database is just storing the object validation data and facilitates the access management. It checks the validity of the data entry along with the corresponding object-specific information. What are the advantages of object-specific tag? There is no need of cryptographic functionality on the tag, since tag is having very limited memory. RFID tags are having very limited memory, so we don't need to store or functions of cryptography on tag. This is done on the verifier. Sure. Even the low-cost tags with limited memory can store the data that binds the ECL or tag to the given object, like a picture in a passport. The main database management system stores the object validation data and facilitates the access management, and its functionality is similar to the systems which solely check for the validity of a serial number, except that each data entry is extended by the corresponding object-specific information. So we are putting our effort on the object-specific information so that the actual object is being traced out. Now this is the structure. Here the three-layered security is being done. Here the RFID reader is placing its data into the border security system. Border security system is attached to the main government database, and RFID reader reads the data from the ECL. This is the whole diagram. Now the system functionality is that. Sure. The communication between the border security system database and the main database is through internet, that is being seen here. The tagged objects are read by the RFID readers at different checkpoints. The information is transmitted in real time over the secure internet link to the main database. Upon verifying each of the remaining objects, the objects are looked up in real time over the internet in the database. The system will check the integrity of the objects. After successful verification of all the objects or tags, the security official allows the objects to pass the border. The RFID technology connected with the databases is security measure that can help to prevent future infiltration and helps in assuming that the objects are not compromised while in transit. I will come to the next slide. This is the conclusion that in this paper we have proposed a border security solution based on the RFID technology applicable for passive and low-cost tags and GPS technology. The main feature of this approach is that a tag applied to the object is tightly bonded to that object and providing a measure to avoid cloning attacks, and the applicability of the proposed solution depends very much on the ability of unique object-specific properties that are easy to observe. Some challenges are there. Several barriers are there. The cost of RFID for higher frequencies, the lack of standardization. Sure, why not? Please.
Do you think there is a need for one border security system for
Sir.
all the do you think there's a need for one border security system for all the borders in India? Or
Yes,
there's-
yes, yes.
Or there's a rather
No.
need
This is
for-
one border security system. Actually, there will be the system, the main database system, where all the information regarding all the tags will be there. Okay. Now it is distributable to all the checkpoints. So wherever the object is going, it is being seen, because that system is placed on all the checkpoints.
I have a question here.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to know that what will be the implementation procedure, because it is a very long border that India is having.
That I have already told in the challenges, because RFID tags are not that cheaper.
Yeah, that's
Because
it will be, the
that
cost
is a-
constraint will be there.
That's why this is a framework, sir. This is a framework. It is to be implemented
And
now.
one more question, that how are we going to tag every human being?
Yes. There, I will tell you.
How the entry of the unauthorized personnel, how it will be blocked by the border security
Okay,
system
okay,
which you are proposing?
Actually, that question was expected. Actually, we will be using the sensor technology. E-seals are already providing that technology. When an E-seal is detached, the information goes to the main database. Now, the RFID tags, which are bounded on the wrist of the human beings, they are also in the market. When you will seize or when you will give that RFID tag to somebody, that sensor is having an angle of say 15 degree or 30 degree. When that angle is deformed, that the database is knowing that the object has been detached or given to somebody else. That security is there in new tags. Any more questions?
Sorry, I think we should close with the questions concerned with the paper, and we can leave them for discussion during lunchtime.
Can I now introduce Dr. Jain, who is now going to give us an Indian perspective on what he has heard in the presentations.
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, I compliment all the presenters. They made some very good presentations. But I personally feel, I think 3 out of 5 are purely theoretical frameworks. When we look at the implementation aspects, first of all, to my mind, we need a person who understands technology and the business or whatever project you are going to lead to. Like I'm typically talking about e-governance, so you need an administrator, someone who can marry the two aspects. Either if you have a good technologist who understands a bit of administration, or an administrator who understands a bit of technology. And if you don't have an anchor like this, you need to have a very strong team with complementing capabilities. Otherwise, no project can really come through. Second point I would like to make is, because I'm told just 3 minutes, so I'm just making it in points, and then in somebody case wants to discuss later. The technology is very agile. It is changing by the day. And in government, we have, especially I'm coming from Government of India or state government's perspective, we are relatively more rigid. So we can't be that agile. So to my mind, to drive a project, PPP comes out as a much better format, because we are able to marry the efficiency of the private sector and the responsibility of the government. We can marry the two together. So if we are designing a big project, we should look at this alternative very closely instead of doing everything in-house. The most crucial part comes is the change management. We have to understand whenever we are changing a project, we are implementing a project, how are we going to hit the various interest groups? Here I would like to mention one example. When I was Secretary IT Madhya Pradesh, we had introduced an act called Public Service Delivery Management Act. Madhya Pradesh is the first state government, and to my understanding, first government anywhere in the world, because people used to have citizen charter and that kind of things, we converted it to a right. The basic concept was, if a person gives an application, which is complete in all respects, his guarantee starts for those particular services which are notified. So the problem was the person who is supposed to deliver the services, who is supposed to accept the application, will falter at the first step itself. He'll not give a receipt of completed application so that the guarantee does not start. So this is an interest, because if guarantee starts, he has to deliver the service within, otherwise he'll come under the monitoring system. So to do that, what we did, we created a system that a person could apply from anywhere. You don't need to be the person sitting to accept the application. We have something like common service centers. Department of IT had already set up all these. So any common service centers, or we created special public service application centers. Now the interest of this particular person was to take an application, because he can charge for a completed application. We set different rates, maybe 10 rupees or 5 rupees for each completed application. So his incentive was to take a complete application, and if the application is not complete, to guide him so that a completed application is logged onto the system and a receipt is generated. And receipt is the starting point of your guarantee time. So you have to look at these interests. You have to actually look at the interests of the leader. You have to, I mean, this point was made somewhere that how would a political person, in Carlos' presentation that point came up. You have to look at that. You have to sort of ensure that what is it in the case, in a case of city services, I would say, re-election is his interest. If my services improve, so we should be able to convince the political leader or the leader of the whole authority that this is in for you. Then he'll also be on board. So change management becomes very crucial. Next important thing comes is the business process re-engineering. This is again very, very crucial. Otherwise, in most of the projects, what happens, people start implementing the way system is. We have to understand and appreciate what technology can do. Like in Carlos' presentation, when we are looking at it, if I have understood, in case I have understood correctly, the application, when it is made by a citizen, it goes to the area office, then to the authority office, from there to area office, from there to the person who is supposed to do this. In Madhya Pradesh, we had created something called CM Grievance Redressal System. It was like a call center for the whole government across the whole state. I mean, knowing numbers, it would be mind-boggling. And slowly we kept on adding services to it. So it was very specific. For this particular service, this CM online will help you out. So the whole technology was used profitably to ensure that the architecture was at the back end. So whenever a person called up or logged in, he would have to identify to which district does he belong, to which tehsil does he belong. And as soon as that identification is done, at the back end, the email and the SMS of the problem in that particular area would travel to the person in charge of resolving that problem. Typically, for a hand pump, suppose a hand pump is not working in a village X. And the database was so rich, when you go that I belong to this district, so the village tehsils would come up, you select tehsil, villages would come up, and you say village, so the list of hand pumps would come up. It's a database which was very dynamic, which was all populated. So you have to select the which hand pump is bad, wrong, which is not functioning. Automatically the messages flow to the hand pump mechanic. It doesn't go to any executive engineer or any administrator. Now it was escalation matrix. If he does not resolve this problem in the stipulated time, the message will go up to the supervisor that your person has not done his job. He would have to close the application. And the escalation matrix, I used to be the secretary to the chief minister also at that point of time. So we had calculated that the 4th level of escalation matrix used to be the secretary chief minister. Invariably, any system functions as good as the people who are manning it. So in spite of all this technology support, every month I would see that at the level 3, which is the head of the department, something like few hundreds of applications would get escalated to that level. So our solution was simple. We would call him up. I mean, I would generate a report on a weekly basis and call up those departments and tell them that the chief minister would be reviewing their department after a week. Trust me, within a week, all those problems would get resolved, or at least closed. You have to keep a very close eye on the quality of resolution. So we had also created this, that a person would call back to see the satisfaction level. Second important part is when there is a pressure to dispose of applications, because you see the numbers from the data. So you need to know, there would be tendency with the officials to close the application, force close, that okay, this has been resolved. But in fact, it has not been resolved. So you need to analyze. We also had created systems, or what are the positive disposals, what are the negative disposals. Incidentally, you don't have I mean, this will come with experience with maybe big data analytics over a period of time. What is the right level of positive complaints? If it is like a hand pump, it has to be 100% successful. So you have to look at that. But suppose I talk about, I think Datta Saab had made presentation about caste certificate. That's a very dicey thing. A person applies for caste certificate, and if he's not eligible for it, if from my data I just pull out from census data and give him a certificate, it will create chaos. Everyone will start taking the advantage of reservation in this country. I'll declare myself as a SC or ST or OBC or somebody in my, because census is declaration based, there's no verification. So you have to, while making, you have to have a system of checks and balances. But there would be services. So if in a grievance redressal, the person says that I applied for my caste certificate, but I did not get it. So maybe a 15, 20, 30% positive resolution would be right. Because the officer in the first instance would have examined that and done something. If it is rejected, then only an appeal is coming. 100% negative or 100% positive resolution in such kind of a thing is a great learning experience. If it is 100% positive, then you need to look into the quality of services being delivered in the first instance. So that is how you, depending on the service you are looking at, you'll have to build the data analytics and what are the alert levels. And for each service, we'll have to decide at what level the alert will go. Another important point is once you do this, suddenly you'll find that this system which you have created has got multifarious uses. I would just narrate an example on that. We had created these common service centers. We participated in a conference held by RBI where they talked about the banking correspondents for taking the financial inclusion to the interiors of the state. That was an offline model which was proposed. We said we already have a person sitting in villages where he has got internet connectivity, he has got a computer. So why buy him another machine of 20,000 for an offline model? We can connect, and then we worked closely with the TCS and the State Bank of India, and the first few such centers were created in Madhya Pradesh. We started with about 600 centers at that point of time. We opened the common services centers for the public grievance and the government service delivery. But we were able to build a whole architecture of banking services on top of the common services centers. But whatever happened, it did not, even though State Bank of India said that it's a very good architecture, they started multiplying it. But apart from State Bank of India, other banks, to my knowledge, did not use it much. ICICI used it. Fortunately, I got a chance to work in Finance Department, Government of India later on. So Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is basically expansion of this concept only. We actually mapped the whole country. We found that there are 160,000 areas. If we divide that a citizen should be able to get a banking service within about 5 kilometers. So on a geographical platform, we mapped the whole country. We found that there are supposed to be 160,000 service providers areas, out of which 30,000 service areas were already served by the banks in the rural areas. We had delineated only the rural areas. Remaining 130,000 places, how do we serve? So this common service center, that kind of, I saw Mr. Tyagi also here, the SPV of CSC was also made, and each bank also created their own banking correspondent, and Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, within a very, very short period of about 6 months, we were able to reach every nook and corner of the country. Of course, there comes the issue which we should not lose sight of, is the infrastructure. Even in the discussion, this point cropped up that all the villages are not connected. That's correct. Out of these 160,000 places which we identified on the map, we found that about 15,000 places don't have a connectivity. So obviously you can't reach. But still, if the remaining 145,000 places are reached, that itself is a big success. In those 15,000 places, we had to work on various different models. Fortunately, now we are coordinating, and the BharatNet project, hopefully by December 2018, we would have connectivity in every nook and corner of the country. So these are some of the challenges and the major issues. I would be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you for the briefing. It was very interesting to see the experience of the Indian government. So just a small announcement before going to lunch. People who are not getting Wi-Fi, especially international guests, they may get a GIO SIM in the hall, in the stall at the lobby. So enjoy your meal and continue discussions with our presenters, and thank you.
I know all of you are very eager to go to lunch. It is already delayed, but I'll just take 1 minute of your time, sir. On behalf of the Ministry of Electronics and NEGD, I want to thank our distinguished panelists here. And as a token of appreciation, I would request my colleague to kindly give a memento to the track chairs and the Indian discussant here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruchi. So we break for lunch and we come back at 2:20 for the next session. Thank you.
So just before I hand you over to you guys, I will just give you some basic rules, particularly to our authors. We're going to have 5 presentations in this track. Louder. Okay. Thank you. So can you hear me? Is it audible? Okay, good. So for this track, we're going to have 5 presentations. And for each presentation, we're going to have a time of 20 minutes in total. 15 minutes for the presentation and 5 minutes for questions and answers, all right? And so that's essentially, we'll be doing the timekeeping. We'll let you know. We'll show you this. So sometimes it's difficult for us to show you, but someone will be there around you to point your attention to the boards. So you'll be notified when it's 5 minutes to the end, and again, when it's 2 minutes to the end, all right? So essentially, but hopefully we don't have, a case where we're trying to drag you off the place, all right? Okay. So I will just hand you off. I'll hand you over to you guys, and he was going to do the introduction for the speakers, and then we'll begin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ojo. So let's just very quickly introduce our team. And myself is Yogesh Dwivedi. I'm a professor of digital and social media at Swansea University, Wales, UK. And my colleague, Dr. Ojo, based in Ireland, National University of Ireland, Galway. And Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Principal Secretary in Telangana State, I believe. So we will be making your presentation and your discussion here as smooth as possible. This track is about engagement. And engagement is important for both practice and theory. For practice, it's important because lots of e-government systems are available. That's not a problem. And India and many other countries have been developing e-government system since last 15 years. But problem is not that they're not there. Problem is that not many people using it. So how you engage people with the system, with the applications that you already have. Also, how you engage people with the governance and the government processes. And this track is going to talk about that. So what we're going to look at, we got 6 papers, I think 5 presenters are here, and a number of papers actually focusing on participatory aspect of engagement. So how citizens can participate, how we can encourage them to participate using technology. without further delay, as we already running late, without further delay, we would like to invite our first presenter, Louis Tehran, and along with his colleague Uljan Kakanova, Eddie Portman, to come and talk about analyzing and integrating dynamic profiles on voting advice applications. So what this work has looked at is trying to propose a framework. So how to use Twitter kind of data, social media data, to connect with users. How can users be informed through social media data so that they can make right decision when voting? They can choose right people when they're voting. So is it Louis?
Yes.
Okay. So Louis.
Okay. Thank you so much. Welcome to this third session. I hope you had a good lunch with some energy. First of all, I would like to mention I have two affiliations. I work at the University of Freiburg in Switzerland, but I also work at the University of the Armed Forces, ESPE in Ecuador. This will be the outline of my talk today. Briefly, I will mention something about VAAs. I will introduce you one interesting project called Smart Vote in Switzerland. And then I will go to the details of what this work is about, which is dynamic VAAs. And then I will show you what we are doing so far, what is the latest application in a sense on how we apply these concepts. I would like to start my presentation by asking two questions. Who heard or do you know something about VAAs, voting advice applications? Please raise your hands. Who knows about VAAs or heard about VAAs? Nobody. Well, the second question is not possible. So nobody used VAAs in a sense. Well, that's good because I wanted to make a briefly introduction on the subject. VAAs are, or voting advice application or voting aid applications, are internet applications, web-based applications that help citizens to find those candidates or political parties according to their profiles. There are lots of VAAs nowadays in Europe, in America, and Latin America, running different types of VAAs, but the concept is mainly the same. I tried to mention here some of the projects that you will find out there. This is not the full list. You can find lots of different types of VAAs, but the concept remains the same. This is one of the VAAs that I would like to mention in this talk, and it's used in the context of Switzerland. It's called Smart Vote. And why is this VAA important, and why I wanted to mention this VAA? In Switzerland, they have, in average, 7 referendums per year. So you can imagine how important is going, or how many times they have to go to voting and election processes in Switzerland. So they developed this system, and it was very interesting. They have applied in different contexts in order to match the profiles of citizens with candidates. It consists of a list of 30 to 70 questions in different subjects, like welfare, family, education, society, finance, justice, foreign policies, foreign trade, and so on and so forth. So we have 11 subjects here. This is what Smart Vote is doing. And for each of the subjects, you have a set of questions related to this subject. In this case, for instance, environment, transport, and energy. And then you have a set of questions that will be asked to both citizens and candidates. And as you can see, you can answer in such a way that you can say, what is your tendency related to this question, and also include the relevance for your profile, for your way of thinking for this question specifically. Normally, VAAs include 5 types of answers, and we will see further how we use this. You can go from totally disagreement and full disagreement. In this case, we only have 4 types of answers, but normally they also include a neutral answer. There are different visualization and different methods to answer questions, but I'm not going to go into these details. And of course, VAAs have different types of outputs. So they can give you a list of candidates according to your profile. They try to match you, in a sense, what candidates are close to you in the way of thinking. They can give you more details about the candidate, studies, you know, a picture, and so on and so forth. They also can produce multidimensional visualizations. In this case, you have the matching, let's say, the profiles of one candidate in green. Sorry, the candidate's in green and the citizen is in blue. So you can see how close is your profile compared to this candidate. You can also have multidimensional mappings, political mappings, so where you can filter out some information, some details that you want to get or you want to get to know better. So this is the kind of output that you get from VAAs. But there's something very important, how to create profiles from candidates. And that's one issue that we have to face. Normally, in VAAs like the case of Switzerland, it's easier because they manage to convince candidates to answer the questions proposed by the system. And how they did it, they put a lot of pressure from media, from academia, that only those candidates which are engaged in the system will be trusted. So it's a special case. But this doesn't apply in every country. Most of the VAAs, they have to run into a lot of trouble in order to get the profiles from candidates because they don't want to answer. For some reasons, they don't want to answer. So there are different ways of looking at the development of a profile from a candidate. And we propose a dynamic model. In this graph, you can see one part, which is the static part, which is what I presented to you, and we call it the VAA 1.0. And then you see the static part includes a set of issues. Issue is the general the general problem that you want to tackle, and then inside these issues you can have a set of questions. This is what I presented to you before. And then it comes the dynamic part, which is the part that we are trying to add on here. The dynamic part involves different modules, in a sense. One of them is sentiment analysis, and this is the base of this work. We will also include context awareness, privacy settings, and some others. But in this work, we will focus only on sentiment analysis. What we do is we try to collect as much information as we can from the posts of candidates. We filter out all those tweets which are related to these questions and the different issues that are presented in the VAA. And then we use sentiment analysis to look how the candidates are, or what's the feeling of the candidate according to some specific case. In the paper, we propose some examples. For instance, weapons, the use of weapons in the US. What is the position of different candidates according to this specific issue? So we try to take this into consideration, to put it together, and we use this sentiment analysis, and then we propose with this kind of mapping. This is a model proposed by Russell, which is basically a multidimensional sentiment mapping. So you can see in the right-hand side, you have the positive feelings. In the left-hand side, you have the negative feelings. And we try to split into the domain of a VAA. So in this case, you can see we have full agreement, full disagreement, agreement, disagreement, and neutral values. This is how we map, or how we try to look at this, the context, the text that we analyze, and we put it in this mapping. I'm not going to tell you about the math. I'm not going to tell you this boring part because everything is on the paper. I just want you to have a visual interpretation of what we do. We collect this data, we filter this data, we put it together, we analyze each of the cases, and then we place it in this bidimensional map. With this information, we can start to create profiles, or dynamic profiles in a sense. So in this table, I'm trying to present a case that we analyzed from the previous election, not the last ones in the US, but the previous ones. when we had Barack Obama, McClain, Clinton, and Mitt Romney. So we analyzed the text, we analyzed the posts from these 4 candidates, and we tried to compare what the experts, something I forgot to mention. We use one of the VAAs that was used at that time in the US, which is the Electoral Compass. So you have the website, you have the link, you have it also in the paper. So basically, they couldn't get the answers from candidates, so they had to go through experts. Sometimes are people from the academia. They have also journalists that they try to analyze what are the profiles from candidates. But of course, these kind of solutions could be biased. That's one of the issues that we face when we develop VAAs. So in this table, I'm showing 8 of the 21 questions that were introduced in this VAA electoral compass. And the answers, of course, were provided by experts on different policy issues. For each of these elements that we have here, behind there is a question, like, for instance, what do you think of environment? And in this table, we have a comparison of what we developed with this approach, taking the Twitter API and compare it with the experts. In some cases, we found matches. That was interesting. In some other cases, we couldn't find matches. In some cases, we couldn't find answers. Because, of course, not for all the questions, we could find posts from candidates. So there are many different problems that we have to face. Some candidates, some users, they are not very active. Some others, they are. So we have this possibility to analyze. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to mention what are we doing now. I told you a case that we analyzed with some data in the previous elections in the United States, but we want to go a step further. So we developed the solution in a real case scenario, and this is the platform, the VAA we propose, which is not a simple VAA, it's also a participation platform. So users, they have to register, and they also interact. They can also interact between users. They can ask questions to the system. They can make posts. It's more like a social network, which includes also a VAA. And in here, in this project, we include already this dynamic profile generation that we propose, but we have 3 elements. The first one, as I said, coming from experts. So we ask experts to help us to understand the, I think I didn't mention, this is in the case of Ecuador, elections in Ecuador that are running for this moment. The elections, the second round of elections will be April 2nd. So the platform is already collecting some data from users and giving recommendations or as a VAA. So the dynamic profile has 3 elements, the experts element that I told you, the candidates' answers. So we contacted the candidates. Some candidates, they answered the questions, and some others didn't answer. And then we added this element of the dynamic profile. So for the first time, a VAA is including this sentiment analysis coming from tweets, feeds. So if you are interested in this project or you would like to collaborate in future, please contact me. And of course, I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Question?
I have 2 questions. One is, do you have a module for Indian elections? And second is that if a, it is not on.
Can I hear you very well?
If a candidate does not answer your questions, does he stand at a disadvantage?
Well, if a candidate doesn't answer a question, we have to find a way to discover the way he thinks. That's why we propose these 3 elements. Either he posts something on Twitter, but Twitter is not the only feed we can introduce. There are many ways. For instance, in the news, you can find some articles about, or let's say, interviews, so you can collect data. But the concept is the same, because we are taking text and we are analyzing the text and try to find out what is the position of this person in terms of this specific topic. So this is what we try to do. Of course, some candidates are not happy with answering questions. They have their own reasons. But we have to find a way to give information to the citizens, the most relevant information in terms of decision making. Because at the end of the day, what we have to face is this. And in some cases, like Ecuador and some other countries, to give you an example, in Ecuador now we had 8 candidates, presidential candidates. In the second round, of course, we have only 2. But for the parliament, we have more than 3,000 candidates. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal because in the context of Ecuador, it's mandatory to vote. Of course, not in every country is like that, but you have to face these kind of issues. Then we try to provide a solution for the citizens when they face these kind of conflicts and they cannot find relevant information when they have to decide.
And the other question was, do you have a module for Indian elections in India?
Not for India for the moment, but it will be nice. I mean, we are open to collaborate. We propose this. This is a research-oriented project, what you saw before, the application itself. But our idea is to move into different countries. This is a VERA, let's say, application, and we are learning from that. We will learn from users. Since we are doing research, we are not selling anything, but we will try to capture as much as we can and learn from citizens and eventually move to different realities.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, please.
Yes. I wanted to ask, do you have some data on how reliable this analysis with the tweets are? So I don't know, maybe in cases where you collected all the 3 elements, how well do they match and can be combined? And also, do you have some data where you made this tweet analysis and then you present them to the candidate? Does he recognize himself in this analysis?
Yeah, what we did is the following. We contacted each of the candidates, more than 3,000 candidates in Ecuador, and we mentioned what we are doing. We proposed them that, we created a profile for you. You can use it. This is your username, your password. You can use it. And we have these questions. We also had some kind of, let's say, initial profile that we created. And we mentioned, look, this is what we think that you will answer. Feel free to correct. This is what we say. Because, of course, we are trying to put pressure on them a little bit, in a sense. And then we also have this expert analysis, which is more in-depth research. I mean, it has an iterative process to find what are the profiles. There are at least 3 experts. They don't know each other. It's a blind process. They are trying to get consensus. So the way we do is we try to engage the candidates. We managed to do it with some of them. With some others, we couldn't. But we always mention what we do, and we give the freedom to express their agreement or disagreement. For the moment, as I said, in the case of Ecuador, we are still running the platform. We haven't done any analysis yet. We expect that after the elections, which will be in April 2nd, we will start looking at what happened. And then we will compare what we propose eventually with some candidates that they answer, and the experts. I mean, we have these 3 elements that can help us to better see the problem. But we have something that I didn't mention, but it's very interesting. When a user signs in the platform, we also collect information from them. We ask them, look, tell us which candidate you will like to vote for. This is one of the first questions. Why we do that? Because we want to know, according to what they answer in this big set of questions, what is their expectations from that candidate? So that can help us to understand what the people think of the candidate. So then we will have a 4th element. So it's what the candidate says about himself, what the experts think about the candidate, what the candidate says on the Twitter feeds, but what the people think about the candidates. So these 4 elements will be helpful for us, and I hope can give you better answer in future. maybe in a new edition of this conference.
Any other question?
In some societies, religion of the candidate or of the voter, the caste to which he belongs, there may be very important issues in voting. Can you hear me, sir?
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
In some countries, the religion and caste aspects during elections are very important. But at the same time, asking such questions and advising a person who's likely to be casting vote based on religion and caste, and advising him on those lines that, yeah, so-and-so candidate is your caste and he's got similar ideas like you, it may be illegal. I don't know, the Election Commission of India would permit such things in India. I don't know if anybody can share his views on this, because this VAA activity may be illegal in some countries.
Well, if I understand correctly, you tried to mention the importance of some social contextual information, which might be a problem in order to get information from users. Is that correct? Yes. Well, that will be interesting. I mean, to be honest, I was not aware of this kind of situation until I came here. I read a book, I was traveling a little bit, and now I could start thinking of that. But it's a really interesting, yeah. There are a lot of ways that we can also discuss about that. I was not thinking of elections, but maybe I can answer. I know that in order to marriage, there are matching also problems that involves caste, religion,